not a floured surface, but a surface that does not have flour on it. Why? Because we're going to use the surface of your counter as a way of making the dough balls. And some of you who've made Parker House rolls or dinner rolls will use this method or know this method. Here I've taken one of the pieces, roughly shaped it into a ball. I put it down on the counter, cup my hand around it, have the dough twirl around under my hand until it becomes a ball. And I'm sharing a problem that I'm sure some of you are having as well. And that is I've got too much flour on my surface. I just went for a sponge to take some of this flour off so that I get the traction I need to make this ball. Yeah, it's better. So you do not want to flour either the dough or the surface. Neither one. I've got a ball. I put it aside. I take the next one. And this does take practice. And the wetter your dough is, the easier these balls are going to be to make. You don't want a perfectly dry dough. There we go. We've got more traction now. A ball. Let's do the next one. I'm actually exposing some of the inside of the dough. I just turned it kind of inside out in order to get more traction on the surface of the counter. I remember I did a one-day kind of experience at a professional bakery years ago. And the baker there, the proprietress, she was amazing. She could do this in no time flat with 2 hands. All right. And one of the things you do want to do is work fairly quickly, because this dough does dry out. And in fact, once you make these balls, what you want to do is cover them, either with plastic or with a closely woven kitchen towel, so that they will not form a skin on the outside. So I've got my 6 little rolls there, and I'm going to take plastic and put them over them. You want to have this plastic fairly tightly covering your Piadina. And what you do now is you let them rest for 20 to 30 minutes. All right. So if you've been baking along with me, some of you are still working on the dough in the first kind of steps. Feel free now to catch up with us. These are going to rest for just a few minutes. And we'll go on to the next steps to make sure that everybody can see the whole process. And in fact, right now, what I'm going to do is turn on my skillet. What I've got here is a cast iron skillet, a big one, that is seated on a, it's still hot, on a little portable burner, electric burner. I think I paid $12 for this some time ago. And these are not precision instruments, I'll tell you. But I like to have it around because if I go to a farm, and I've done that before where they're doing classes for children, Piadina is, the kids love it. Piadina because they can see it being made. I come there with already my dough already mixed and rested, and the kids get to see the Piadina being made, and then we get to serve it to them within 10 minutes. So these are going to rest for a little while. Not long, because we have to continue with the class. But I'm wondering, are there any questions now or any other kinds of thoughts that people have about making either this flatbread or another kind?
Yeah, Sylvia, a couple questions. What types, you might be getting to this, but what types of sweet toppings or fillings would be tasty? And what if you don't want to cook them all at one time? Can you freeze some of these balls?
Freezing the dough. You know, I have never tried to freeze the dough, but I think that if you were to tightly wrap each one in plastic and put it in the freezer, I don't know that there's any reason why you couldn't, to be honest. I mean, I freeze pizza dough all the time. It's worth a try, to be real honest. And again, that's why I provided the recipes include the proportions for just half a recipe. So if you don't want to make 6 of these things, lots of us are at home without a lot of family around, you can make a half recipe, which works out really well. And I guess I want to point out, if I was to freeze these, you can freeze the cooked Piadina, the skillet baked Piadina. Cool it, make it, cool it, wrap it really, really, really well and freeze it. And then bring it back up to room temperature and flash, kind of heat it up on another cast iron thing. I do not recommend trying to heat them up in the microwave. They become like bricks. Just not a, they are not really useful that way. Piadina, like I said, it's a peasant kind of bread that's made at the last minute with very few ingredients. And so because once you get the hang of it, it really doesn't take that long to do. You can do that. The other thing too is that these can sit out for 30 minutes, but if you find that, you know, you've got to be called away, you can wrap these up really well and stick them in the fridge for an hour or 2, and then bring them out to cook. But you have to let them come up to room temperature for half an hour. Okay, so these are not the best kind of breads to have to make in quantity and then freeze.
And are the dough balls supposed to roll easily on the counter?
No, it's an acquired kind of skill, and the cleaner the surface is, like mine still has too much flour on it, the more difficult it is, because the dough will slide instead of getting traction on the surface. So just do the best you can with this. Understand, for some part of this recipe, you need a very lightly floured surface, like when we were kneading the dough. But in order to roll the balls, you need a flour-free surface. And anything on that counter that has flour on it will make it difficult to roll those balls. But shape them as you can. Again, this is the beginning. Shape them as you can. Oh, my skillet is more than ready to go, so I'm going to make a Piadina. Let's make believe that 20 minutes has passed. Here's the dough ball. I'm just going to put a tiny bit of flour, very little flour, on the counter. I'm going to take that dough ball and I'm going to flatten it with the palm of my hand. No big deal. That's all I'm doing. Excuse me, I'm out of range here. Then I'm going to take my rolling pin and roll it out to 8 inches. And my skillet's getting so hot, it's going to pick up the smoke alarm. I hope not. Okay, I'm rolling out one of these balls. What I'm going to try to do is get to a diameter of between 6 and 8 inches.
Can you roll on silpat
It might, if the dough will adhere to it so that it will roll, sure. I'm not too familiar with working with Silpat. I'll be real honest. I've got it, but I just don't use it very much. All right. I've rolled this out. Now, either you can work at it and make it a perfect circle, or you can have something that's longer. Mine is a bit longer. And I'm just going to lay it in the pan. Then I'm going to take my fork and I'm going to prick the surface 5, 6, 7 times. You cook it on each, or you bake it, skillet bake it on each side 3 minutes, maybe 2 to 3 minutes. Immediately when you put it in there, you'll see that within 30 seconds or so, you get slight forming of bubbles. Let's see what I can do to move this a bit. This is not going to let me move very much. I've pricked it, and slight bubbles are beginning to form.
Why do you prick it?
You prick it so that you won't get bubbles that tear the surface of the bread, but rather you have a little bit of steam coming out. What you're trying to achieve is a nice dark browning on either side of the bread.
And what temperature should the pan be?
Oh, that's such a good question. I would say that I would be, if this was a flame, I would be at a medium heat, but I would make sure that my skillet was well heated. You want a hot surface to put the piadina on. Otherwise, the dough will stick.
Are you using an oil for cooking, and could you use a healthy avocado oil?
I am not using, this is an absolutely dry skillet. There is no oil on it. It's not a simmered bread. It's not a lightly fried bread. It is a kind of a pan roasted bread. So I flipped it over, and I'll show you why that I already have a lot of good char on the surface of this bread.
Yep, you can see it well, thank you.
And now I'm just putting it back to complete the cooking. While that's happening, I leave those dough balls under plastic wrap so that they don't dry out, and I can begin to make my second one. Again, pressing it down with my hand. Taking the rolling pin.
Do you only poke one side of the dough?
Yes, good question. Just one side. By the time you turn it over, this is already crisp. And so there's no way that it's going to be pricked very easily.
And so you were talking earlier, Sylvia, about an open flame and the pan heat or temperature. Would it be best to be made in a cast iron pan?
You want something heavy. You want something heavy that really retains heat, that holds heat evenly. And so cast iron works really well. If you have another kind of very heavy bottomed skillet, that would also work well. A griddle works well, because those are the kinds of surfaces that really hang on to heat and distribute it evenly.
And someone just commented that Vicki says she just got her dough balls done finally. Does it take that long usually, or just the first time?
Just the first time. You'll be getting much better at it. And one of the things I think to remember about creating piadina, yeah, we're done, is that, and I've laid the finished piadina in a kitchen towel in order to retain heat and moisture while I make the next one. I prick the surface. Let that go for a while. Mike, was there a question about what to use as toppings? Am I remembering?
Yeah, and there's another one. One was about like what could you use for a sweet topping?
Okay.
Another's, could you use a tortilla press, or do you need to work the dough with the rolling pin?
You know, I've never made tortillas, so I'm kind of coming from ignorance. But I think that the corn flour tortilla, and maybe even the wheat, might be a wetter dough that is more amenable to squishing. I don't know that this will be because of the gluten within the flour. I don't know, somebody else out there might have a good response to that.
And then a sweet topping question.
The sweet topping, okay. In fact, the sweet topping is what I'm going to be making, using this piadina for. So, oh my goodness, you can melt butter on it, sprinkle it with cinnamon sugar. You can use any kind of jelly or jam that you want. You can use maple syrup. That's often what I use with kids. Today, I'm going to take a book, rather a page out of my sister-in-law's book and my brother's book, and use it as a base for ricotta and honey. Ricotta being a real Italian staple. Anybody out there using a griddle?
Emily says she is, Sylvia.
Oh, good, good, good. I'd like to know how that goes.
Couple people.
I'll tell you, this little unit that I'm using, as convenient as it is when I have to hop around and do things with kids, is not very precise. I mean, $12 gets you $12 worth. And so the temperature kind of fluctuates up and down in it. So it's taking this second piadina a little bit longer to make. But it's coming along. And one of the things I guess I would say is that you don't want it to cook or char on the outside too quickly, or you will not get any cooking on the inside of the piadina. Even though it is very thin, you do want to make sure that this thing is baked all the way through on the skillet.
Someone asked if you can do this on the grill.
You know, I don't know. Let's think that out. There are some people who've made, I bet in and amongst this group, there are people who've made pizzas on the grill, and they might have some awfully good advice or insight to share. I suspect that if you were doing this on a grill and you used a pizza stone or a pizza steel, it would work just fine. And you get a great flavor, that smoky flavor too. That would be a huge plus.
Someone did say, can you use these for flatbread pizzas, or are they too soft?
Yes, you can use them for flat pizzas. They're not too soft. They're not too soft. They do have body to them. In fact, I'll take a look at the ones that I made earlier today. And they're more like a gordita kind of shell. They've got body. They'll hold stuff. I know we're going to be using these for tacos. Probably not this batch, because this batch is already done, but maybe tomorrow, because they are really phenomenal. They're terrific when they're already warm and ready to use. I guess if I was using them as a pizza crust, I would have like all of the fillings already cooked, all of the toppings already cooked, because you don't want to stick it in the oven again. You're going to get a burnt piadina. Oh, this one's done. Yep, nicely browned.
Sylvia, just a quick time check. It's about 5 to 7.
Yep, and I'm just about done. I'm just going to cook one more before the smoke alarm gets going.
And Jessica's also curious about savory topping options, if you can get to that.
Oh, sure, just about anything. So if you've got, oh my gosh, what can't you use? Let's say you saute or caramelize a lot of onions and garlic. Oh, that would be so wonderful. If you add some cooked and chopped up chorizo, that would be terrific. Some of you may know how to make an onion marmalade. Oh, that would be so good. You make a fajita with chicken or whatever it is that you use, that would go well. Imagine sauteing a full skillet of mushrooms and onions. Add any other kind of vegetable that you like. All of that, green peppers, all of that would go so well. And then if you wanted to add some cheese to the top, whether it's goat cheese or mozzarella, that I would put everything on your piadina. I would put the cheese on top and then just put it under the broiler for like 20 seconds. Because all you want to do is melt the cheese a little bit. I mean, you'd have to be like a hawkeye looking at it. Any kind of meats, any kind of sauteed vegetables. If you're used to using Middle Eastern kind of foods, those things would go beautifully with this. Again, it's also very versatile so that you can use it as a way of cleaning out the bottom of your chili bowl, your soup bowl, sopping up gravy. You could put this at the bottom of a bowl and have a lot of sauteed vegetables on top of it. You know, if you fried up a couple of eggs, put those on top, and you've got a complete meal. You've got a complete meal. So this last one is baking, and as we do this, I'm actually going to take one of the piadina, because we're coming to the end here, and, ooh, new one. Woohoo. Oh, nice one. And I'm going to take my ricotta. I thank you, Roseanne, my sister-in-law, for letting me know about this. I'm spreading it on the piadina. I'm using my fork because it was right here and handy, but you can use whatever implement you have. Oh my gosh, my mouth is watering. And then, because this ricotta tends to be really mild in flavor, and even though this is a sweet dish, I'm going to reach over. Actually, excuse me just a second. All right, I'm back. I just went to get my Maldon salt. I'm going to take a little bit of salt, just sprinkle it on there. Then I'm going to take honey. This is raw honey. And I'm having dessert before dinner tonight, obviously.
This is certainly one of the downsides of video classes.
Yeah. If you were here, you would have some too.
That's right.
I'm just going to cut a piece.
What is Maldon salt?
Maldon is a sea salt.
Mm.
Oh, That is so good.
We believe you.
It's a salt that actually is allowed to dry so that it forms pyramidally shaped crystals. Each of one of those crystals, and they're large, they're big flakes, packs quite a bit of salty punch. So it's a finishing salt. You do not use it to cook with. You use it on top of your finished dish to add little punches of salt without having to add actually quite a bit of salt because it's such a concentration of flavor. So that's it for making piadina. This last one is done. It was a smaller round. Just gonna put it down.
And there's one up close, yep.
Yep, right there. And that is the class. I'm so glad everybody has joined. Any last thoughts or questions, Mike?
Well, the thank yous are streaming in. A couple of people are saying it's delicious. So just thank you very much. And
yay!
A second ago, I also posted our website and our phone number for the restaurant if you want to come check out the restaurant or order something. So please feel free to do that. And I also wanted to mention to you that Sylvia recently taught 2 sourdough classes with us. And all of those classes are on our YouTube channel now. So you can go to our YouTube channel, go to YouTube, search Farm Table Foundation, and you'll find a YouTube channel where you can see that class as well as others like backyard gardening and backyard poultry raising, that kind of thing. So thank you, Sylvia, very much.
Oh, thank you. And thank you to the Farm Table Foundation for making these Zooms kind of accessible to so many of us. I enjoy it tremendously. I am so glad that all of you decided to spend some time together with us as we kind of took a look at piadina and hopefully other classes in the future.
Well, thank you, Sylvia. And thank you for joining us, everybody. Take good care, and we'll see you in the next class, we hope. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.